Hey everybody, welcome back to RPG Imaginings. Today I have an unboxing for you, and I also wanted to showcase some of the things that I'll be featuring on the channel over the coming months. And this is far from an inclusive list. One thing that I want to mention that I sort of just discovered today, I'll be honest with you, is that I was fiddling around on Mongoose's Traveler website, and I noted that the Element Class Cruiser box set, which I had kind of dismissed because I thought it was just like generic ship stuff for the game. And as I did more research today, I was able to figure out that, oh wow, this is the same ship as is featured in the Deep Night Revelation campaign setting that I had backed on Kickstarter, and it suddenly took on completely new meaning to me. And so I went ahead and ordered that from Noble Knight, and I should be receiving that, hopefully within the next couple days, since I went ahead and got it priority mail. But I do have an unboxing for you here, and the unboxing is Call of Cthulhu related. And what I'm going to do here is, after I do the unboxing, I'll feature some of those other products that I was talking about before. And this one is coming from eBay, and it seems, okay in its packing. At least there were, pieces of cardboard here, and I'll just remove the packing slip and we'll flip it over, and here we have Lurking Fears for Call of Cthulhu. This is a Triad Entertainment's supplement that was released in 1990, and it contains quite a few scenarios. And one of the things that I've really been interested in lately is doing more research into older published supplements. And wow, Scott Anielowski was an author on this one in 1990, and so a lot of legacy there. Now this is going to be a marked up copy, and part of the reason why I purchased this is not only because it is an old scenario book that I can, learn differences of like how scenarios were constructed early in the game's history as compared to nowadays. But I think it'll be really interesting to see how a prior GM, what they decide to mark, what they decided as key things to mark in the adventure. So I actually don't mind that this is highlighted, because it gives me a little window as a keeper as to what was going through the brain of a past keeper, who knows how long ago this was owned. But it's this will be really interesting to go through. And so this keeper decided to eliminate this portion with the Death Eater, and just to put lots of big old gators in here. And so this is definitely, ooh, that's some nice artwork there in this supplement. So yeah, that the Glocky is featured in this one, which doesn't really surprise me, because I think that Glocky was a huge favorite of Scott Anielowski. Still is, I'm sure. And so, this is a pickup off of eBay. I got this for a really reasonable price for it being an old supplement. It's kind of beat up. But even though it's a little beat up, I think I paid $24 for it, including shipping, which is a pretty good price for an older supplement like this, especially one that has long been out of print and isn't available. And, I like the cover art a lot. It's definitely creepy and is detailed, and so yeah, this is a good pickup. Lurking Fears for Call of Cthulhu. I think that this was published during the 4th edition of the game, and believe it or not, 1990 was when the 4th edition of Call of Cthulhu was out, even though the game was released in, I believe, 1981, I want to say. And so the game had been out 9 years and was already on a 4th edition. I'm not sure what the story is behind that, but I thought that I would just go ahead and showcase this on the channel. Now for some things that are coming up. First thing at the top of the stack here, we have AD&D's Night Below campaign and Underdark campaign. This is an interesting supplement. This is a POD copy from DriveThruRPG, and so this was originally a box set that was 3 booklets and a map. And this is considered by many to be a top classic campaign, and I've had the PDF because I went ahead and I ordered the PDF in conjunction with the supplements that you see here. And then near the back of the book, this box set came with like a lot of maps and stuff. And so those are all printed here in the back of the book in full color. But Night Below has a tremendous reputation. And I'll be honest with you, I've read about through the first chapter of this or so. Reading through the first chapter, the original author of this got how to run a campaign and really understood how to construct interesting role playing situations for characters. This is not just a dungeon crawl. There's surely dungeon crawl elements in it, but this is, I read the first chapter of Night Below, and I'm getting the impression that this is sort of like we're really getting into the hobby and really trying to make this more about you have X number of torches and you are trying to go in and get as much treasure and kill as many things as possible before coming out and restocking and repeating it. This is more like there are several factions, all of which have their own motivations, all of which have their different interests, and they are battling each other. Some of them are against the heroes, some of them are with the heroes, some of them are in the middle. This is a really interesting piece of work that I'm going to be very interested to dive into in detail. And when I first got into AD&D back in 91, okay, I didn't have a lot of money. Like I saved up just to get the 3 core books. And so my guess is what happened was that Night Below, had been published really before I had gotten into the game, that far, I should say. So this was published in 1995, which was the year that I graduated high school. But at the time, I was really playing D&D out of core books. I didn't even know that other supplements for games were a thing at the time because honestly, I grew up in a very small town in Wisconsin, and the story behind it is that my parents took away my AD&D books when I first got them. I didn't own my own copies of D&D books until I was 17 in 1994, and my parents immediately took them away as being of the devil. And as soon as I turned 18, suddenly I became mature, I guess, and they gave them back to me. Kind of a weird logic, but this is all during the hysteria of Mothers Against Dungeons and Dragons and everything. And my mother now understands that this is this was a creative enterprise for me. I think that if you were to ask her, she would probably say that she was regretful, so I'm reading the first chapter of this, Night Below, and I'm just, I wish that I had known that this was a thing back in 95. Now, 95 was my first foray into Star Wars role-playing, D6, Wedge Star Wars. And that was my first introduction to other role-playing games existing. I grew up in the Milwaukee suburbs, and Gen Con was going on full swing during this entire time, and I didn't even know Gen Con was a thing until 1995. Once again, sheltered community, And so I am so excited to dive into this. I already see, just in reading the first chapter, the beauty of this thing. I could even see myself in some way, shape, or form converting this to Call of Cthulhu and having it being a real successful thing. I think that some of the races could be easily subbed by Call of Cthulhu races. I think that just learning from the relationships between the different factions in here is useful for any game master who is attempting to run campaigns. I prefer campaign play to one-shots. Doing campaigns compared to one-shots requires more sophisticated storytelling if you really, really want to do it well. And having interesting relationships between factions is a key element of exciting and interesting campaigning, in my opinion, from a role-playing perspective. And so as a treatise as to how to do factions, I'm really interested in reading more about how the factions play in and the decisions that players have to make. And I almost want to call this an atypical AD&D campaign. I mean, this is pretty different from, a lot of stuff that was written. It seems to me that I've read during the AD&D era, and I'm excited to dive into it. Okay, next, we should move on to the next thing. Champions. I played Champions a handful of times in my life. I think the last time I played it was around circa 2006, and I don't remember which edition it was. So it's surely pre 6th edition, because Champions Complete here is 6th edition version of the rules. It contains the hero system rules and the specifics for champions, basically everything that you need in a single book. I had a former friend who I don't really like, who recommended Champions to me, and I'm going to be honest with y'all, I discounted the recommendation just because it was a dude who was really aggressive to me and somebody who I didn't like. So I'm like, this person doesn't like Champions, so why the heck should I get any, or this person likes Champions, why should I get any enjoyment out of it? I know, it doesn't really make sense. But as I've been doing research, especially over the last year or so, 2 years or so, I started this process pre-pandemic, but definitely over the pandemic, I've really drilled down on doing more research into role-playing's history and role-playing's past, and trying to learn a lot from role-playing games that have existed for a long time. Champions originally came out in the early 80s. My guess is that what I played in 2006 was probably 2nd or 3rd edition, because I was playing with older gamers, and I was playing with gamers, who got into role playing far longer before we were playing. And I remember how when we were playing in 2006, you could basically be or do anything that you want. And that is the real appeal of the hero systems, that the hero system is designed so that, especially for Champions, which is the superhero role-playing game version of it, that there is this myriad of powers that you have to choose from. Plus, all of these powers can be altered in ways like making them last longer, making them affect different things. You can also build in consequences to these powers to make their purchase cheaper. It is just a really open system in terms of the capability of what you can do with it. And that is something from a creative standpoint that is just stupidly attractive to me right now. To have total freedom to be able to construct characters. And so what I'm going to plan to do here is I'm going to plan to get a pretty solid reading of the rules in and get advice online to make sure that I don't do anything inaccurately. But I think that it would be a lot of fun to build a Champions character on the channel. Not only because it would be fun because of the creativity standpoint, but from the creativity standpoint, but I also think that it would be fun because I think that based upon what I've read so far, Champions is a really good example of a role-playing game whose character creation you have to approach from a different perspective from the conventional. And I am all about defying the conventional on this channel. I play D&D just like you do. Now, granted, I've been playing D&D less and less as the years have gone on because, I found this myriad of role-playing games out there that frankly are just more interesting to me and better to me. This is a channel about role-playing diversity and how many different role-playing games there are and different systems and different approaches. And what really stands out to me about Champions is that you would start character creation with a concept in mind, and then you get the rules to fit your concept, not the other way around, where you have a rule set and you have to pick from rules to attempt to get to what your concept is. Champions kind of makes other character creation systems look really snide and depressing. Okay, frankly. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't challenges to Champions, as well. And, I'll try to explore some of those things. So I went ahead and picked up Champions Powers as well. And this is going to be a book that's just going to be ridiculous to read just from a raw creativity standpoint, because this is just hundreds of different superhero powers that you could develop and alter and meld into characters. I mean, I could read this book cover to cover before I go to sleep and be reading it for months and months and months. This is so information dense. It's ridiculous. It's like a 300 and it's a nearly 400-page supplement of just powers for the game. And, Champions Complete, as I said, 6th edition contains everything that you need to play. And so this is going to be a really fun exploration. It's a sort of role-playing game, not only genre. I haven't really featured any superhero games on the channel thus far, but I certainly haven't featured as many universal role-playing systems like the hero system. Now, I know those of you in the audience are screaming right now, BRP is a universal system. Yeah, it is. And there are a lot of aspects of BRP that I like, and I do consider it to be an elegant system. But BRP still suffers from the standardized problem of having a set array of things to pick from that largely all work the same way. Now, I could probably argue that folks at Chaosium or people who use BRP would, of course, encourage GMs and players to branch out and to do things the way that they want to do them. And I certainly will always encourage role players and game masters to do that. But it seems that what sets Champions apart as a universal system is that this system is encouraging you to truly meld the system to be whatever you want it to be, to fully execute your creativity. And I got to give credit to the original designers. That is just exactly the sort of concept that should exist in role-playing games. So, I just wanted to give you all a little showcase of some things that are coming up on the channel, some exciting things. When I eventually get that Element Class Cruisers box set for Mongoose Traveler, that will be coming up on the channel as well. And then I just unboxed Lurking Fears. That'll be fun to read through. And so let me tell you, my nightstand stack is ridiculous right now, and ridiculous in a good way. I am having so much fun reading role-playing supplements right now. And basically, folks, the short history of this is when I turned 40, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I am reading, I'm delving into role-playing games as deep as I want to delve into them. And that was, one of the best recreational decisions of my life, because I have a great play group for Call of Cthulhu right now. My spouse is certainly excited, that I'm able to do some recreational things that I'm more interested in. And, just like any good marriage, we, support each other's hobbies and everything like that. And for the last 4 years, I've just had this fabulous time falling deeper in love of something that I've always been in love with. And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. And that's part of the reason why I started this channel, to really get at this concept of examining the true breadth and depth of the hobby, and to not limit ourselves to one thing. Now, granted, I'm a salaried individual, so I have the money right now, to be able to make some of these purchases. But to be fair, role-playing isn't really that expensive of a hobby either, because you can make a moderate investment in a game and have everything that you need to play it. And so thanks so much for watching. Maybe drop down in the comments if you have any fun role-playing stories that are related to anything that I've talked about here on this episode of RPG Imaginings. I hope you've enjoyed the diversity of games that I featured in this little preview video, and thanks everybody for watching. Have a good night.